So, now we're here, the final stretch of my 12th Doctor episode reviews, and I must say, this has been a very, let's say, educational experience. While I started reviewing this era because I thought it was very good, and didn't get the appreciation it deserves, my takeaway after finishing both Series 8 and 9 is thinking that they were a lot worse than I remember them being. Especially Series 9. Seriously, I used to think it was up there with the greats, but it's easily one of the show's worst series, with a horribly inconsistently written Doctor. Clara being the most boring blank slate of a character ever, only to have the majority of the series nag you about how great and how obsessed with the Doctor she is, and just a bunch of awful, underwhelming, nonsensical trash episodes. But hopefully... who am I kidding? Ever since I started reviewing Capaldi's era, my biggest dread was always Series 10, because I've never really liked this series at all, if I'm honest. But hey, I was wrong about Series 8, incredibly wrong about Series 9. Maybe Series 10 will actually surprise me, and it'll be better than I remember it. Maybe all these years of saying it's the worst 12th Doctor series, I've been wrong. Though, to be honest, I doubt it, because a lot of this series has Capaldi clearly bored out of his mind, Bill, who starts off as a pretty great companion but then just delves into dullness, the shitty Vault arc, Missy's pathetic excuse of redemption, and Nardole. I like Nardole the most out of these options, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But, no more introduction. Onto the pilot, which is Moffat's way of trying to trick new viewers into giving him a second, third, fourth chance at being a good showrunner. Let's begin. The episode begins with a funny moment of Nardole showing Bill the way to the Doctor's office, because he wants to see her. Prepare for a lot of praise of Nardole in these Series 10 reviews, by the way, because he's one of the only aspects of this series to get consistent enjoyment out of me. Because, unlike the other main male lead of this series, he always seems like he's enjoying himself, and Matt Lucas himself is just one of those actors whose charm alone can carry a lot of things he's in.
KSI stands for what? Kiss Simon immediately!
No, it means knowledge, strength, and integrity.
And you've been boxing as well, haven't you?
Yes.
You boxed Logan Paul. Did the fight resolve all that sexual tension?
Sexual tension.
This moment is an example of that, as no words are exchanged between these two, it's all done with their facial expressions, yet it's still pretty funny. Subtle facial cues are something sorely missed after seasons of Clara, because she just couldn't do them. The Doctor then waltzes in and Bill tells a story about how she fatted this student that she had a crush on. And while this is a pretty funny story with a nice little payoff to the joke later, I do have to question what the relevance of this is in universe. Bill's excuse is that it would develop into something which doesn't really make sense, so I'm already confused. Now obviously out of universe, this is supposed to make us like Bill, by showing off some of her character traits and comedic chops. And it does that pretty effectively, but in universe, this moment is just weird, to be honest. The Doctor then asks again, and Bill says she likes them, and loads of people go who aren't supposed to go. Now, I'm never going to university because it's too much fucking work and too much fucking money, but the implication of this is that Bill goes to lectures that she hasn't paid for because she likes them. Well no, she actually does get paid by the university, so it's even worse than just showing up without paying. She shows up without paying while getting paid. That doesn't seem very fair if you ask me. I don't think Moffat thought about the implications of this too much, to be honest. But I will let it slide because of this joke.
You've been lecturing here for a long time. Like 50 years, some people say.
Yeah, and you're thinking, well, he doesn't look old enough.
No, I'm wondering what you're supposed to be.
So the Doctor enrolls Bill without her paying, seemingly keeping up that narcissism from Hellbent, I see. And then we get another out-of-sync title sequence. Are you fucking serious? What a great first impression to make, and I've always had a bone to pick with the Series 10 title sequence because it's just a mess. First of all, they still haven't fixed the white lines going around the edges, despite the fact they fixed it for Christmas 3 years ago. And the placement of Matt Lucas's name looks so tacked on. Like, why does it say "and Matt Lucas" instead of just Matt Lucas, like a normal second companion would get? He's in every episode of Series 10 to some extent. It's not like he's a guest star or anything. Add his name in properly. And why does Capaldi's face show up after the Doctor Who logo? That's just wrong. It looked so much better when it showed up before, and what makes this even worse is that someone on YouTube made it better than the fucking BBC did. If you excuse the 480p, that's a much better version of the Series 10 title sequence. So we see the Doctor is teaching lectures at a university and has been for a long time, and I do think that this is quite an interesting idea. I hope they develop this loads through the series.
You need to keep your eye on men.
Men aren't where I keep my eye, actually.
Ah, Bill's a lesbian. Neat. I hope they develop this loads through the series and this isn't just a thing that gets bonked on our head over and 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 over in a completely unrealistic and forced way. Is that Valerie? We then get shown that the Doctor and Nardole are keeping a vault secret underneath the university. Incredibly dangerous place to keep it considering what's inside it, but, you know. Last time, I swear. This is a pretty interesting idea, and I hope they develop it through the series. 10 minutes in, and I'm already noticing that the setup for shit later in this series has become a good 20% of the episode, and it hasn't been done in a very subtle way at all. Now, obviously, the first episode of a series has to set shit up for later, because this is the foundation. This is how you hook people in. But this episode is coming off as desperate, as it shoves one after another element in to try and keep us interested. Like in the first episode of Series 1, we didn't get bam Rose, bam Doctor, bam this, bam Series out, bam this, bam where's set, bam. The story just mostly focuses on Rose as a companion, and there go the audience figuring out who the Doctor is while developing Rose as a character. But even then, that episode had so much more to set up because they had to bring the show back from the dead. So let's compare this to Smith & Jones instead. Smith & Jones is a setup to Series 3, and it mostly just deals with the audience getting invested with Martha as a character. The series arc is mentioned extremely briefly, subtly, if even at all, and this episode right off the bat, within its first 10 minutes, is trying to show off its new companion. The series arc, and the Doctor being on Earth for a long amount of time. We're off to a great start! Yeah, I didn't need a flashback to a character that you just showed literally 3 minutes ago, thanks. Then we get a weird moment where Heather makes Bill go and look at some piss.
It hasn't rained for a week.
Yeah, but, well, you know, half the students here are blokes.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
But then when Bill does look at the piss, Heather just leaves? What? I do like, however, the next scene between the Doctor and Bill, because it's some nice character building for Bill, clearly setting out to impress by buying nice gifts for the Doctor and Valerie, which could be a character trait later explored in the series. Except this time I actually meet it in earnest because I can't remember. And this scene also sets up the Doctor doing really nice things for Bill, which is a pretty nice scene, and it shows off Pearl Mackie's acting capabilities in a really great way. This one scene of her crying felt more human than Clara did in all of Series 9. It also helps that Pearl Mackie emotes like a person, and not seemingly like an alien pretending to be a human. And Bill talking about her never meeting her mum and making things up that she said is quite sad really, and builds up sympathy for the character in a really good way. I hope Bill having a dead mum doesn't ruin any future stories in the series. The one nitpick I have with this wholesome scene is that Bill sees that the Doctor took the picture of her mum, but then doesn't even question him on it. Like, come on. If you told your teacher that your mum hated having her picture taken, then some pictures suddenly appear and he's in one of them, surely you would have several questions about that. Not even like super aggressive ones, like I would just ask like, did you know her mum or something? Anything? Then Bill meets with Heather again, who gets absorbed by the piss, and that's the last we see of these two's quote-unquote relationship. And it wasn't much, was it? Now, as hard as it's going to be, make sure that you remember that. Because that relationship, as minimal as it was, will have a payoff. About 22 weeks from now. I hope you lot have a good memory. So Bill tells the Doctor about the piss and he runs away to go and sniff it.
Do you know any sci-fi?
Their relationship is one of the only things carrying this episode so far, if I'm honest. As weak as Capaldi's acting can be in this series, he at least does a lot of good stuff with his face. So they look in the piss and they find out that it's not actually piss, it's blue piss, which mimics you, which is definitely a weird concept for a first episode, but sure. We've had weirder before, and that's worked in the past, so I'll go along with it for now, I guess. We then get a pretty pointless scene of building up the blue piss monster, which I honestly have to question the existence of. The episode could really play out exactly the same without it. All it really does is establish that Bill's foster mum is a bit dense, which would be fine on its own if this series used her a lot, but this series does so incredibly little with Valerie that it honestly just seems like a waste of time. Could have easily just replaced this with a scene of Bill realising she forgot something at uni and then needing to go back. Or actually having a scene for Bill and Heather to show their relationship. This episode doesn't need any scenes of filler, given that it's already longer than usual. After the obligatory generic confrontation scene between Bill and Blue Piss Heather happened, the Doctor shows Bill the inside of the TARDIS and we get the initial TARDIS reaction scene, and I must say, I do really like this one. The Doctor puts on the best 12th Doctor outfit, the pullback shot reveal is fantastic, and Bill's reaction is a unique one, having more of a comedic reaction to the TARDIS instead of a very shocked one. Her saying it looks like a very posh kitchen and asking to use the toilet when she first enters the most impressive spaceship to ever face fiction is a super charming reaction to it, and it just oozes personality and charisma, and tells us, while Bill isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, she is a very well-meaning person. Literally one episode with Bill in Series 10, and I already prefer her to Clara in all of Series 9. Lol. Well, besides that final scene in Face the Raven, but the point still stands. Actually, no, the final scene in Face the Raven, it's like, it makes sense, but like, you know, Bill's just better in it. The Doctor then decides to take the TARDIS next to the vault for some reason, and we get a funny moment where Bill takes a while to realise the TARDIS size.
It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
Hey, we got there!
So we get more bonking on the head about this stupid vault before the TARDIS moves again. Bill's reaction to all of this is pretty great for humanising her and making her character empathetic immediately. And watching this episode is honestly just reminding me why this companion becomes such a letdown later on in this series, because fucking hell, so far she has, without a doubt, been the best part of this episode by far. Every single scene with her just oozes charisma, and she's just gotten more and more likeable in every scene she's in.
If you're from another planet, why would you name your box in English? Those initials wouldn't work in any other language.
Oh shit, that's true. Bill's secretly based?
Doctor.
Okay, what? Okay, so first of all, why the fuck did they just speed up the footage of Bill walking? It was so apparent and it looked shit. Speaking of looking shit, what on earth is the CGI to Heather? It looks so awful. And it does for most of this episode, to be honest. As much as I rinse Series 9 for having shit CGI, I honestly don't remember Series 10 being as bad. But this is unfortunately something I'm going to have to be a lot more generous with about this series over Series 9. And that's purely because I don't own a Series 10 Blu-ray, because I refuse to pay more than £10 for such a shit series, and I'm not exactly desperate for it either. So I can't fully judge the CGI for being awful, because I haven't seen it at its best, because I'm having to sift through it on iPlayer, which can be incredibly unreliable sometimes. And Doctor Who on Blu-ray can make even the shittiest effects look good. Trust me, the fucking plastic bin effect even looks decent-ish on Blu-ray. But this, yeah, I'm pretty sure all the CGI with Blue Piss Heather is just bad. So we waste more time on another planet where we get more nice characterization for Bill, with some nice reactions. and we then get the stupidest revelation that this episode has. It's revealed in the scene that the blue piss puddle is just really intelligent space fuel that, when it saw Heather, decided to kill her and use her to escape. What the fuck? What? That is... Wow, that is stupid. I get that opening episodes don't usually have a super engaging plot, as they're usually about establishing new characters or reuniting with the old ones. But what in the fuck is this? A blue piss fuel puddle possesses a girl and uses her as a pilot because she wanted to leave. This sounds like a plot to a fucking Curse of Fatal Death sequel. We then get a stupid moment where the piss fuel tries to grab Bill and pull her into the water, despite the fact it loves her? Right. We then get a scene which furthers the Daleks' shittiness in Moffat's era, though, to be honest, as bad as this scene is, as it makes them look super ineffective and bad at their one fucking function, it's nothing we haven't seen before in this era. And I do prefer the Daleks being used as a cameo as opposed to being forced into a shit story every series. I honestly... Yo, in the script it says I honestly wouldn't mind if the next showrunner only uses them as cameos. Not long before this, next showrunner is fucking Russell! Wow! Yo, Russell, I love you. You're a god. Please use them as cameos. I don't think we can handle another, like, Cult of Skaro story. Like, I know you can make it slap, without a doubt, but, like, we're all kind of sick of the Daleks at this point. Like, use them like you did in the Waters of Mars, please. Sorry, I got excited because, guys, the fucking king, is coming back. I can't get over it. I'm still so excited. But yes, anyway, Russell, please only use them as cameos, and don't use them every series and make a bunch of awful stories. Not that you ever would anyway, because that's what's been happening for over 10 fucking years at this point. Same, mate. Same. So, predictably, the Dalek gets defeated by the piss fuel, and after more unnecessary flashbacks to the things in the same episode we are watching, Bill lets the blue piss puddle fuel go, in a moment that might have been impactful if we'd actually seen these two have any sort of relationship at all. But because we haven't, this scene just feels hollow and empty. Seriously, remember this for in those 22 weeks. Or 21, depending on if it's on the main channel, which it will be.
She wasn't human anymore.
Will we see her again?
So the Doctor goes to wipe Bill's memory, and we have a great moment where she objects to it. And I really like this, as it gives more empathy to Bill's character, and humanizes her further by adding to her relatability factor, because she doesn't have an exciting life, and this has just been, as said, the only exciting thing to happen to her, and she doesn't want it taken away from her, which is great. The one thing I don't like about this scene, though, is how they force in a reminder to what happened in Hellbent, and, well, we all know how I felt about Hellbent now, don't we? The Doctor's aggressive reaction on deciding to let her keep her memory was a pretty good reaction, though, and I'm going to interpret it as him remembering what happened to Donna, not Clara, because fuck Clara. So obviously he lets Bill travel with him in a pretty satisfying way that the story's led up to nicely, and with some fantastic music to accompany the scene. This is a pretty great way to end an episode. So, that was the pilot, and I'm not gonna lie, for the first time in a very long time, this is an episode that my thoughts have actually stayed pretty much the same on. The positives with this episode first, because there are actually quite a few more than I remembered. First of all, and most obvious of course, is Bill. As much later episodes of this series make her character pretty boring, this episode has reminded me so much of why I liked her in the first place. In this one episode, we get more empathy, personality, humour and charm for this character than we had for Clara in the entirety of Series 9. Besides Face the Raven. Seriously, this episode does a fantastic job setting up this character. It's just unfortunate what later episodes go to do with her. Same goes with Nardole. While not as good, he plays his comedic side role perfectly in this episode, and he complements all the scenes that he's in nicely. However, that's really where my positives end, and my first real complaint with this episode, and this won't be the first time you hear me saying this, is Capaldi. And this is a shame, but This is the first time of many that you can tell that he's just extremely bored with the material he's been given. A lot of the time you can tell just by looking at him that his heart wasn't fully in it, like with pretty much all of Series 8 and 9. Don't get me wrong, he has great chemistry with both Pearl Mackie and Matt Lucas, but you can tell that he's bored, and that happens a lot in this series. Not that I can really blame him, because what in the name of John Sims' Electric Chicken is this plot? A fucking blue piss fuel puddle absorbs someone and chases Bill because she had a crush on her. What the shit is this, man? This is one of the laziest, stupidest plots Moffat has ever contrived. And it gets even worse when you remember why he actually even wrote this shit in the fucking first place. Unfortunately, because of this really stupid plot and Capaldi not being invested, it drags this episode down quite a bit. Which is a shame, because the characterization for Bill is excellent. And unfortunately, the next episode is in a similar boat, because up next is How Do You Do, Fellow Kids? Bill's reaction to all of this is pretty I can't speak this morning.